survival tips for the wilderness of revelation. What do I mean by the wilderness of revelation? Ours is a path of energy and awareness. We are energy and awareness. We are Shiva and Shakti. We are that. And as the awareness expands, as the awareness deepens, it evolves, it expands, it deepens into, it escalates into revelation. I say wilderness because on the path of awareness and revelation, we're always moving further. We're always moving further into the Mysterium, which is both the inside and the outside of what we are and all that we experience. This beautiful painting, it's a Rubens painting, and he did it with his friend Jan Bruegel the Elder. And so it's the three graces adorning the goddess. You see the eight-breasted goddess and the three graces adorning her, and then all of nature adorning the three graces around them. Very powerful representation of the reality of Gaia from 1615. We're going to cover 5 survival tips. We're going to talk about the true nature of karma. I'm going to talk about life as the teacher. I'm going to talk about healing, what it is and what it isn't. I'm going to talk about the Shang Tzu's useless tree, and I'm going to touch on the power of legend. True nature of karma. It's helpful to have a deeper understanding of karma, of the true nature of karma, because it's not simply cause and effect. It's not simply a morality play, and it's certainly not just some kind of fatalism or determinisms. It's so much more. And whenever you encounter a teaching or a teacher or a tradition which tells you really that this universe and everything that happens in it, and that your life and everything that happens to you and everything you do is simply cause and effect. I mean, simply it's a kind of a mechanistic cause and effect, where if I do this, this happens. Or it's some kind of morality play where all that befalls you and all that you accomplish is some form of meritocracy. These are limited understandings of what karma really is. The 3 witches in Macbeth knew that, and so they hoodwinked the usurper. But that's a story for another time. I want to share with you 2 approaches to the true nature of karma. The first is what's called in science, popularized, the butterfly effect. So a meteorology professor at MIT decades ago now was entering some variables into a computer program that simulates weather patterns, and he had a number of variables. He had, I think it was a dozen variables that he was entering, and on this particular morning he rounded off one of the variables. He hadn't done that before. He rounded it off and he went to get coffee, and when he came back, the calculations led to a realization which we now call the butterfly effect, and really became one of the founding principles of chaos theory. and has reached into the fields beyond meteorology, of course, geology, biology, physics, the butterfly effect. And what are we talking about when we talk about the butterfly effect? That a minute, to just turn to the dictionary, a minute localized change in a complex system can have large effects elsewhere. So as it's described, the fluttering of a butterfly's wings in South America could result in a typhoon in the Pacific. A small, seemingly insignificant event at one end of the world can lead to something huge and seemingly unrelated at the other end of the world. In other words, everything is connected. All of life is connected in ways that we cannot possibly understand. This is what the divine reality was trying to tell Job when it answered Job, where were you when I made the foundations of the world? If I tried to answer your question, you couldn't possibly comprehend. You couldn't possibly comprehend the answer to your question. So just this sense of the incomprehensibly profound, incomprehensibly vast and powerful interconnectedness of everything, every event, every element, every act, every inaction, everything connected in ways that we can't understand. And then within the context of this wildly complex interconnectedness of everything, I speak of right attitude. This is a quote from the greatest Western philosopher of the 20th century. No, it's not Heidegger, it's Sartre. And Sartre said, freedom is what you do with what has been done to you. Freedom is what you do with what has been done to you. That's freedom. That choice that you can make in any moment, good or bad or indifferent. That choice, even if it's simply an acceptance of choicelessness in a moment and how you choose internally to relate to that choicelessness, that is freedom. Freedom is what you do with what has been done to you. Right attitude toward the true nature of karma. The third aspect of this exploration of the true nature of karma, we could show karma as the great wheel, the wheel of fortune as it is in the tarot, the trump card, the wheel of fortune in tarot, or the wheel of woe, as it's sometimes described in the mystical literature, right? The wheel of karma, the wheel of the law, the great law, always churning. Yes, certainly. But I invite you to ponder the true nature of karma as the work of the three graces and the three fates. The three graces down through Western mythology and art and legend, you'll see various versions of them. I love this beautiful Raphael painting, the three graces, 1500 from 1504, 1505. The great Raphael painted the three graces, and they're each holding an orb. And when I see those orbs, I see them as, these crystal balls, these palantirs, they're worlds, the three times, the three worlds in the Nordic and shamanic, the three worlds, and the three times, past, present, and future, yes. gazing into the palantir, the three goddesses dancing. And then the three fates live at the roots of the world tree, the great tree, the tree of life, the world tree at Asgard, and they are at the root, and they spin the threads of life on their looms, and they cut marks and the pole figures and measure people's destinies. And the three Norns represent past, future, and present always. And they're powerful maiden giantesses. They weave, they spin the thread of life at the foot of the world tree. Beneath them is the well, with the two swans that have engendered all the swans of the world. This particular rendition is a Polish rendition. It's of the Polish version of the three fates, the Norns and Nordic three fates. And this beautiful Eastern European painting, I love it because you can see them weaving, the threads are coming in and out of their mouths, in and out of their heads, all intertwining with the tree of life and everything, the lake below all of it. The well below all of it. So I talk about seeing the fates equal the graces, fates equal the graces. The fates are the graces, and the graces are the fates. They occupy the same space. This profound, this incomprehensible mystery, the true nature of karma, is at once the dance of these three beautiful goddesses, the three graces. Sometimes they're called, sometimes you see them charm, creativity, and beauty. But Hesiod, I think, called them, make sure I get this right. Yeah, Hesiod called them joy, radiance, and flowering. Joy, radiance, and flowering, together with past, present, and future. The fates and the graces occupy the same space. The dancing of the three graces and the spinning of the three fates. This is the true nature of karma. Beyond morality, beyond cause and effect. Something much more dynamic, something much more feminine, the divine feminine really at work in the very substance and nature of the creation. Something much more dynamic and much more looking forward into the century and the millennium to come. Next teaching I want to explore, or element or aspect of the truth I want to explore, is the notion that life is the teacher. So it's very easy. It's very easy to say life is the teacher and to take it as some kind of generality, some kind of a statement that, oh yeah, you nod, oh yes, life is the teacher, and then you go on. You don't really take it as the deep, 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 technical, profoundly occult truth that it is. This is a technical truth. This is a profound occult truth that many, 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 most of us on the path miss. And we miss it, and most traditions do not at all reinforce this powerful, vital, technical, occult truth that life is the teacher. It's not a generality, it's not a platitude. It's not meant to be something like, oh yes, of course, and now where do I go to find out what to do? Where do I go to find out who to be? Life is the teacher. So this image is taken from The Matrix, the Wachowski siblings' masterpiece, The Matrix, 1999, I believe. And this image is of the Oracle, a character in The Matrix. And the actress who played the Oracle in this, the first of the Matrix films, is Gloria Foster. So Morpheus, one of the leaders of the resistance, who has found Neo and believes that Neo is the chosen one, takes him to the Oracle because he wants the Oracle to tell Neo what he needs to know, to confirm to Neo that he is the chosen one. So when Neo comes to the Oracle's flat, she's in the kitchen baking cookies. And he enters and they engage each other, and she points out something written over emblazoned over the doorway of the kitchen, some Latin words, and she asks him if he knows what that means, and he doesn't, and she says it means know thyself. And she says, I'm going to tell you a little secret, she says. Being the one is just like being in love. No one can tell you you're in love. You just know it through and through, balls to the bones. And then she says, well, let me have a look at you. And they have a further exchange, and then she says to him, but you already know what I'm going to tell you. And then he says, I'm not the one. And she says, sorry, kiddo, you got the gift, but it looks like you're waiting for something. And Neo says, what? And the Oracle says, your next lifetime, maybe, who knows? That's the way these things go. She gives him a cookie, and she sends him on his way, promising that he'll feel right as rain after he leaves. She didn't really tell him he wasn't the one. She just held up a mirror to his state, a huge, deep, unflinching, acutely high-def mirror, and showed him what he already thought he knew, that he wasn't the one. So I had a friend. I call him my Yoda. He was a legendary American sage, or he will be a legendary American sage when we're done. And he shared a great deal with me. And one of the many things that he shared is how to teach. He said, I'm not a teacher, and I'm not your teacher, I'm your friend. And most people would just smile and turn to each other and wink as if, well, he doesn't really mean that. Of course he's a teacher. All the great lamas came and said he was a teacher. Great swamis came and said he was a teacher. Great Sufi masters came and said he was a teacher. He didn't use any of those titles. He said, I'm not your teacher, I'm your friend. He said, life itself is the teacher. I surrender to the love of the one which teaches me from within. And he shared what that meant. He didn't share it so much by talking about it. He shared it in his living. And he would say, if you feel anything, it's your own damn fault. In other words, stop ascribing it to someone outside yourself. If you have a realization, if you begin to feel the great movement hidden within the surface of the world and within the surface of your psyche, when you begin to feel the truth of what you are and where you are and what this is and who you are, when you begin to feel that, it's your own damn fault. And that what a teacher really is, that what we call a teacher really is, a true teacher, is a portal. And so when you're in the presence of somebody who is awakened at a deep, deep deep level. That person's atmosphere, that person's presence is like a portal, and when you enter that presence, just by the laws of physics, by the laws of the occult science, it activates that your portal, and you begin to feel, and you get a sense of what it's like, and hopefully you could take advantage of that opportunity and find that portal when you're on your own, because really in the end it's all still your own damn fault. But this was his way of teaching. So now back to the oracle. So he comes in the second movie, Matrix Reloaded, it's a few years later. He meets the oracle again, this time on a park bench in a courtyard somewhere. She's feeding the pigeons. This time she doesn't offer him a cookie, she offers him some candy. She says, "I love candy." By this time, he is the chosen one. He has accepted the role of the chosen one. And she doesn't point out that the last time they met, she doesn't point out the last time they met that she mirrored back his disbelief to him and said, "No, you've got the gift, but it looks like you're waiting for something. Now he is the one." And she says, "Well, let me take a look at you." She says, "You turned out all right, didn't you?" And they discuss the nature of reality, and she tells him that he must go to the source. She says, "Where the path of the one ends, you've seen it in your dreams, haven't you? The door made of light." And she says, you have the sight now, Neo. You are looking at the world without time. You have the sight now, Neo. You are looking at the world without time. Now consider what the oracle is. Consider what goes into the making of her as a teacher. Well, first of all, in the story, in the narrative, she's a computer program, which is a very powerful and apt metaphor, really, because what is the oracle in our experience of the movie? There's the script. What makes her so powerful? The script, the filmmakers, the director, the editor, the actress. Without that actress, without Gloria Foster, would it have been as powerful? Without her somatic understanding of the role she was playing and everything unwritten about the lines that had been written for her, what would it have been this effective? All of those elements went in to what our experience of the oracle is when she says, you have the sight now, Neo. You're looking at the world without time. Life is the teacher. Just as all the elements that went into the creation of the oracle within the context of the movie The Matrix, all of the elements of life come together to show us something. Books, movies, art, the internet, Gaia herself, an ocean, a sacred artifact behind glass museum, one form or another of plant medicine, animal spirits, the music of the spheres, the scientific method, organic growth, the stages of life, illness, good and evil, karma, all of it is your teacher. All of this is teaching us all the time if we are open to learn, if we are open to listen, if we allow ourselves to feel. Which means what? Life is the teacher always. If we turn to the teacher within to discern and learn, life is the teacher. The oracle is real. She exists. She is both a pattern of light and sound, and yet also an authentic intelligence alive in us and in the actress and the filmmaker and the screenwriter. So, just to bring us down to some bullet points. It's a false meme to say you cannot progress on the path without a physically incarnated teacher. Period, full stop. It's a false mean. Doesn't mean it's not optimal to have one, but it's a false mean to say that you can't get anywhere without one, or that it's dangerous without one. Believe me, it can be much more dangerous with one if it's the wrong one. Second point, being without a teacher, without a physically incarnate teacher, is not a spiritually impoverished state. Being without a teacher, a physically incarnate teacher, is not a spiritually impoverished state. Thinking, next point, thinking you cannot progress without a teacher is a spiritually impoverished state, whether you have a physically incarnate teacher or not. Life is always the teacher. Whether you consider someone in your life to be your teacher or not, it is always life teaching you through them, as well as in myriad other ways, some much more efficacious than others. This profound, deeply technical, deeply occult truth, this practical wisdom, this medicine, is a very important message for the emerging global wisdom tradition of the 21st century. Next, I want to talk to you about healing, what it is and what it isn't. Now, I mentioned the path of revelation and what it is. So there's a path of revelation and there's a path of healing. You can go far down the path of revelation and not beyond the path of healing. Some of the greatest have. It's painful and dangerous. Sometimes it doesn't end well. Sometimes it ends marvelously in spite of all that. But the path of revelation is the path of revelation. You can go far down it without healing. Likewise, you can go down the path of healing without any concern about the path of revelation. They're not essential to each other. Healing is healing. Revelation is revelation. Revelation is not healing, and healing is not revelation. It's optimal to have both. It's optimal to be moving down both paths. If you want to be fully integrated in this life, fully individuated in this life, fully in sync with Source, you want both the path of revelation and the path of healing to be operative. You want to be moving on both at once. All of us in life are on the path. The life itself is the path. Revelation and healing are choices, ways, pursuits that we choose, directions that we choose on that path of life. They nourish each other, and optimally we want to be on both. Healing, the path of healing is not what it sometimes seems to be. The path of healing is not pretty. The path of healing is not pretty. I have a beloved friend, and for many years we've watched movies, a beloved ally. Friend isn't an adequate enough word, a beloved ally. And we watch a film together, or a favorite show together, and when the drama gets to the end, invariably a happy ending, one or the other of us will break into hooray for Hollywood, da 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 Hollywood, because we're acknowledging that Hollywood always, more often than not, always gives us a happy ending. But that's one of the functions that myth has. You want to uplift, you want to encourage, you want to inspire people, you want to lead them. You're not misleading people with a happy ending as long as they understand that life and myth Myth is a kind of medicine. Life itself is the experience. Life doesn't always have happy endings. But we move forward, we lean forward, and we aspire, and we hope. So we allow for the happy ending. We take it in its nourishment, understanding the nature of reality. So healing is not always what it seems, and it's not pretty. And my life story, I the Dragon, is a story of a path of revelation. It's also a story of the path of healing, and on that path of healing, much healing got accomplished. But there's a list of items, that issues, problems, challenges that one could overcome on the path of healing, and there are numerous items, issues, challenges on that list that haven't been crossed out for me, and some will never be crossed out in this life. I write about when you're a victim of abuse, when you're a survivor of abuse, to some extent, if the abuse is acute and world-class abuse, you're basically, it's like you're a one-armed man. You're never going to grow that arm back. You might get a bionic arm or a prosthesis of some kind, but it's not going to be your arm. You're not like a lizard that grows back its own tail. You're a one-armed man, a one-armed woman. Don't trust paths that tell you you're going to grow back that arm. Don't trust healing modalities that are going to tell you you're going to necessarily grow back that arm. Much will come back, much will be restored, much will be redeemed, much will be arrived at for the first time, but then other things won't be. I love this painting by Kahlo. Kahlo, of course, you may know if you're familiar with my work. She's very important to me in the evolution of my psyche. I love this painting of hers, The Wounded Deer. Of course, Kahlo's life was full of suffering, both from a horrific accident in which she was hit by a trolley, and also by her intense and conflicted marriage with Diego Rivera. But her work is not just about pain, not just about suffering. Her work is about the deepest and the most extraordinary aspects of the beauty and truth of this world, right? So this is her depicting herself as the wounded deer, and I think there's 9 arrows piercing her, but I love it because she's in the wilderness of revelation. She's in the forest of psyche, and she's on the move. She's wounded, she's bleeding, she's got 9 arrows, but she is galloping at full pace. Now, maybe those arrows will be removed. Maybe some parts, some of them will come out clean. Maybe some parts of them will be lodged in there. Maybe her organic tissue will close around it and heal. Maybe she'll be able to clean them. Maybe she'll survive these 9 wounds. Maybe she won't, but she's moving. Healing isn't pretty. And healing doesn't take you to a state that you never. Healing doesn't take you back to before you were wounded. Healing just gives you a new opportunity to live, and you living in relationship to life in a different way. You have to just keep moving forward. And there's another truth about healing, other than it's not pretty, and that there are some parts of what happened to us that just will never be 100% in a way that people might tally it up. Another part of it is I draw your attention to the Tolkien's Three Rings and the moment at the Grey Havens when, after saving the world, after saving Middle Earth, and bringing it into a new age by throwing the ring of power into the crack of doom. Frodo and his band of hobbits, they return to the Shire, but Frodo has been through so much that he can't just resume life as it was before, because he entered so deeply into the world of magic, and he confronted so intimately and did battle so intimately with the nature of evil, that he is changed forever, and he simply can't go back. So there's this beautiful interchange with Gandalf, and Frodo says, I fear there's no real going back, though I may come to the Shire, it will not seem the same, for I shall not be the same. And then he does, in fact, at the end of the trilogy, go off with Galadriel and Gandalf and the last of the elves and magicians. He goes off through the Grey Havens to the world, to the magical world, to another dimension. Healing what it is and what it isn't. And the only way on, Joe used to talk about praying, we pray to the great God on. And on the path of healing and on the path of revelation, we pray to the great God on and on and on. Now this is, I want to tell you the tale briefly, a Shang Tzu tale, a great Taoist tale of the useless tree, and the context for it is about outcomes, really. We've talked about the true nature of karma, we've talked about life being the teacher, we've talked about what healing is and isn't, and this is about the outcomes of our life. As I was writing the narrative of my life, chronicling my life, I saw several roads, more than a few, striking in a certain way, because there were at least three different vectors in which I would have probably ended up. It certainly ended up in 3 different presidential administrations and 2 different White Houses, and by other vectors I would have ended up probably working on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and other ways in which I might well have ended up deep into Hollywood or deep in to Washington, D.C., and other vectors at other times in my creative life or my professional life, or the weaving of my karma, where if circumstances or choices had been different, it would have gone this way or it would have gone that way. And I realized, looking back, looking back at it with no problem at all, I remembered seeing it just as what is. And I remembered a time when I was looking at a particular world leader at a moment of crisis. It doesn't matter which one, and it doesn't matter which crisis. It's not germane to this, the point I'm trying to make. But I looked at this person, and this was the most powerful most powerful man in the world at that moment. And no one would argue that fact. And I realized in a powerful way, not just intellectually, I realized that the world is upside down and inverted. It's an inverted pyramid, and in some very real ways, in some very real occult ways, in some very technical ways, some very mystical ways, the most powerful man in the world is the least free. The most powerful man in the world is the least free. And I wouldn't be here talking to you, and I wouldn't have been in that beautiful circle of love in July, giving part one and part two of this talk. I wouldn't be here sharing this experience with you, and whatever insight I bring from my experience. I wouldn't have been able to be here. I wouldn't have arrived at this moment if my life had been any different. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that a lot of what we call beauty arises from a kind of a strange cocktail of gratitude and disappointment. It's fascinating, really. It's fascinating medicine. So Shang Tzu tells this story, and it has always been a favorite story of mine, and for several, 2 or 3, well, maybe 20 years, maybe 30 years, certainly 20 years, I would not have been able to articulate why. But now I can. I understand why I've carried this story with me and have always told it to people, and sort of not been able to explain why it was important until I arrived at this moment in this period of my life. So the carpenter, he was on his way to the state of Qi, and he got to a particular place, and he saw an oak tree by the village shrine. A tree was large enough to shade several thousand oxen. It was 100 spans around it. It towered above the hilltops with its lowest branches 80 feet from the ground. More than 10 of its branches were big enough to be made into boats. There were crowds of people, as in a marketplace, and the master carpenter did not even turn his head. He just walked on without stopping. His apprentice took a long look and then ran after the carpenter and said, "Since I took up my axe and followed you, master, I have never seen timber as beautiful as this. But you do not even bother to look at it. You walk on without stopping. Why is this?" And the carpenter replied, "Stop. Say no more. That tree is useless. A boat made from it would sink, a coffin would soon rot, a tool would be split, a door would ooze sap, and a beam would have termites. It is worthless timber, and it is of no use. That is why it has reached such a ripe old age." After the carpenter returned home, the sacred oak appeared to him in a dream that night. The same oak appeared to him in a dream that night, and it said, "What are you comparing me with? Are you comparing me with useless trees, cherry, apple, pear, orange, citron, pomelo, and other fruit trees? As soon as the fruit is ripe, the trees are stripped and abused. Their large branches are split and the smaller ones torn off. Their life is bitter because of their usefulness. That is why they do not live out their natural lives but are cut off in their prime. They attract the attention of the common world. This is so for all things. As for me, I have been trying for a long time to be useless. I was almost destroyed several times. Finally, I am useless. And this is very useful to me." And final.
Don't look at me, the useless tree, for I am living happily. Don't you see? You have no need for me. So let me be, and let me do me. Do my tree thing infinitely. I drink from my roots the nectar of me. I sway in the breeze so peacefully. There is nothing that I need. Your admiration cannot feed, because I drink infinitely from the source inside of me. I hold treasures and secrets your eye cannot see, so look elsewhere at those fancy trees, the ones who need to be needed, not me. Keep on walking. Let me be. I will be here for eternity, witnessing all these amusing stories. When other trees die happily from giving their illusory, distorted bark and pageantry, I will still be here, always be happily a useless tree.
Final teaching or survival tip. Final survival tip I want to share with you that it came up out of my contemplations from the writing of I the Dragon is, and the compiling of Words of Power as well, these two publications, is that I want to talk to you about the power of legend, power of controlling the narrative, because there's really nothing else you can control. I mean, you can't control the narrative of your life as perceived by other people, but you can control the message that you're delivering. And I heard someone, they thought, well, he's a legend in his own mind. You're a legend in your own mind. And I turned and I said, yes, I am. Where else would it be protected and nurtured and kept alive and given life? I absolutely am a legend in my own mind, and I encourage you to be a legend in your own mind and to listen to the teacher of life and learn from the true nature of karma, and learn from all that healing is and isn't, and learn from even your the aspects of the twists and turns of the plot of your life that would seem to have made you a useless tree. Learn from all that, draw from all that, and make this legend like a tincture, like a potion, powerful. And only even a drop of it can give hope and courage and joy and love and peace to those you share it with. Now, this is a beautiful quote from Kerouac. I hope it is true that a man can die and yet not only live in others but give them life, and not only life but that great consciousness of life. Kerouac. So Kerouac and I've had a long relationship with him, I feel like, although of course I only learned about him, I learned about him in my early adolescence, and his writing profoundly influenced me. And he had an amazing journey through life, and you could certainly say a sad ending, and a lot of healing that didn't get done in his life. But the legend that he launched into the world was a powerful one, and it has medicine for others, for those who resonate with his legend, and his writing is the portal. The legend is a portal to the writing, and the writing is a portal to something inside yourself that it can activate, right? So, and then you can go on, like I have gone on to make my own legend, and hopefully with a happier end than his, and hopefully some impact on those around me. I wrote this note to Jack Kerouac when I came across this sidewalk slab dedicated to him in North Beach. I'll read you this. This is included in Words of Power, New Language for New Reality. Jack, I met all of your books on the road, not on a boxcar rumbling into the west, but on an A train hurtling downtown late in the night at a too tender age, when child soldier risk analysis said it was safer in the New York City subway than in my own home. When I was cold and wet, I set fire to the pages to warm myself. When I was hungry, I poured extra virgin olive oil on them and ate them like freshly baked bread. But of course, I read them first. I followed your desolation angels. I leapt after them into the golden eternity, soaring and falling for years until I came to the age at which you shed this mortal coil, and then it occurred to me that I should not follow your navigational charts into the dark currents of the Lethe, and that I should instead travel the Danube and the Yangtze and the Mississippi and the Ganges and the Amazon and the other great rivers of this earth a while longer. And so, as much as I loved your company, I parted with it, lingering on the near shore, listening to your tears and laughter drifting farther and farther into the mists of a different world, leaving me to plot my own course, and thus enabling me to take these photos and write you this note. Yes, the beat is still strong here in the city of St. Francis, and I have lived here for years, yes, and I still hear your bellowing performances carried in from the sea at nightfall on the summer fog. So, yes, my friend, be a legend in your own mind, and then share that legend. But have that legend be informed by the true nature of karma. Have it be informed by and shaped by what life as the teacher has brought you. Let that legend be integrated and woven into the path of healing. Not just the path of revelation, the path of healing. And then allow your legend, even if it's a legend of a useless tree, allow that legend, put it into a form that you can somehow share it with others. Let it be medicine. And it may end up more famous than Kerouac, or more deeply immersed in healing and blessed joy than me, or somewhere in between, but whatever happens to you, take control of the narrative, shape your own legend, tell your own story.